Hey everyone, today I thought I would just take you along with me while I mix up a fresh batch of kombucha. Um, I won't get into the details about kombucha and its benefits. I think if you guys haven't already and that's something that interests you, I feel like you'll probably just go research it on your own. So I'm going to spare that part today. I'm just going to show you how easy the process actually is to mix it up. Whenever I first started doing kombucha, it was super intimidating. It sounded way harder than it actually is, and I'm glad that I stuck with it. I've been doing this for over a year now, just over a year. So if you haven't done it already and you're wanting to, definitely do it. It's not that hard. Um, so I've actually been letting my SCOBY sit in here from the last batch that I had made and did a second pour on. I do the second ferment on kombucha to get the bubbliness. You don't have to, but we'll talk about that the next time when this batch is ready to be bottled. So for now, the last time that I made a batch was probably a month ago, and I haven't made a batch since then, only because it took us a while to go through the last batch that I made. So today I'm only just going to do a half a gallon. I'm going to just mix up a half gallon. So the measurements that I'm telling you guys while we do this is just for the half gallon. So keep that in mind. But when I let my kombucha, and sorry, there's dry sourdough. It's right next to my sourdough starter on the counter. But when I just leave it alone and don't do anything with it for a little while, it grows more. These are called scobies. It grows more scobies, layers and layers of scobies. So I'm going to remove the oldest SCOBY today. Some people like to put them in a separate jar and have what they call SCOBY hotels. I did that at one point, but there's really no reason for me to do it. I don't have a lot of people that ask me for a SCOBY. If I had more people asking, I would probably do more SCOBY hotels, but I don't. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can look up on what to do with your SCOBY that you discard. I just feed it to my chickens. It has a lot of good gut benefits for them too, not just for us. So I just go ahead and give it to the chickens. But so you want to make sure, I've already washed my hands. My hands are clean. So I'm going to reach in and grab my SCOBY. Some people use gloves. I just make sure to wash my hands really well. And so I'm going to reach in and grab my SCOBY. There's like lots of SCOBYs in here. Each time you make a batch, a new one forms. It just constantly grows. It's a living bacteria. So the top you can see is the whiter one. That's the freshest SCOBY that has grown. The bottom is more brown, and so as it gets older, it will turn more of a dark tan or brown color. So this is my older one. I'm just going to discard that for my chickens. I'm just going to set it over here. I don't have my slop bucket in the house. And so it's still a lot of SCOBY. So I'm even going to peel off another layer. So here's another layer. The chickens are going to be so happy today. Okay, so now I'm just left with these two. I like to keep two in there. You don't have to. You can just keep the one. It doesn't matter. I think the more you have in there, the quicker it's going to ferment. So, and I find it kind of hard to, the faster it ferments, I think the harder it is to get a really good bubbly brew when you do your second round, when you bottle it up. So I like to keep it on the smaller side. So I'm just gonna leave those two in there. And I'm going to set it aside. I have this bowl. Hang on just a second. Sissy, it's okay. So I have this bowl. It's clean. So you want to make sure that if whatever you use for your SCOBY and the leftover tea, make sure you put it in something clean that has been rinsed really well. I would hand wash whatever you're going to use. I wouldn't, if you have a dishwasher, I wouldn't use a dishwasher. Like, I wouldn't use it straight out of the dishwasher, just because if there's any residue left over from the soap, it can affect your, but you don't want the residue. The soap residue can have an effect, maybe not instantaneously, but over time it can damage the bacteria from your SCOBY. So each batch that you pour, you want to make sure to save behind some of the tea. And just like if you've ever made yogurt or if you've ever done sourdough, it's kind of the same process. I'm gonna go grab Sawyer. She's gonna hang out with us. Okay, so I almost lost my train of thought. So if you've ever done any sort of fermenting of anything, a lot of it requires a starter, basically. So whenever you are done fermenting a batch of tea, you want to save behind a half a cup to a whole cup, depending on if you're going to do a half gallon or a whole gallon, of the tea that's already been brewed. There's a lot of beneficial stuff in there to help kickstart your next batch. So I got my SCOBY in this bowl, and I'm going to pour the juice. She was happy with some toys. I gave her some new toys to play with. So I'm going to pour that in there. And there's some, like, you'll get sometimes little, like, brown stuff floating in it, and it looks really weird, and it looks really gross. It's not bad. It doesn't mean your SCOBY went bad. That's just an excess buildup of basically yeast. So you can dump it, you can leave it. It doesn't, either way, it doesn't really matter. So I have already brewed my tea. I use green tea. You can use green tea or black tea. You don't want to use anything that's flavored, like fruit flavored or fruit infused teas. You want to stick with just green or black. And so I did, because like I mentioned, I'm doing just a half gallon. So a half gallon has 8 cups to it. So if I was going to do a full gallon, I would do 16. But I'm doing 8 cups, so I need 8 tea bags. 1 tea bag per cup, if you're using just the standard tea size. So I'm going to just squeeze out, and I let it, I brewed it in 3 cups of boiling water, or I steeped it in 3 cups of boiling water. And I let it sit until it was cool. It's cooled off now. So it's going to have a strong brew, which is good, because the SCOBY actually, and don't do caffeine free, what the SCOBY feeds on is 2 things: the caffeine in the tea and the sugar in the tea. Both of those are extremely important for your SCOBY to thrive and for you to ferment the tea the right way. That you need that. You need it. You have to. Okay? And it has to be white sugar. You can't do brown sugar. You can't do honey. You can't do molasses or whatever other substitutes there are out there. You really do need to use white sugar. That's the best sugar for your SCOBY. And as it ferments and it eats off the sugar, it will reduce the sugar content. So it'll start out super sweet tasting when you mix it all together in the very beginning. But when you taste it on the day that it's ready, you will taste that it's really become less sweet than that first day that you mixed up the batch. So I'm going to pour, this is 3 cups, okay? This is 3 cups of tea, because I diluted it for just the brewing process. And when I'm going to add more water to it to equal 8. So, 8 minus 3, I'm going to add 5 more cups of water. But before that, I have my sugar. And for a half gallon, you want to do about a half a cup. I do a little bit, like a heaping half a cup. I couldn't find my half cup measurement, so I'm using a 3/4. But I basically do a heaping half cup. So I'm going to add this in. You can do it when your tea is slightly warmer too, if you want it to mix in a lot better. And then you grab your spoon, and you do want to use a wooden spoon when you mix it if you do, or silicone. Don't use any metal. So I'm just going to mix it up. Ooh. Okay, so I mixed it until the sugar dissolved. And what I did with those tea bags, I just discard them, so you no longer need them. So I'm going to, and this is room temperature now, so I'm going to add 5 more cups of room temperature water to bring my tea to 8 cups, because we brewed 8 bags for 8 cups, which is half your gallon. You want to make sure that your water matches the same room temperature as your tea. And that part is super important because your SCOBY has been on the counter living in room temperature. So you don't want to add your SCOBY in to your fresh brewed tea too hot, because it can damage the good bacteria in your SCOBY. You don't have to worry about it being too cold because it's room temperature. So I'm just going to mix it all up. And then that liquid that we talked about at the beginning, I'm going to dump that back in here. But I'm going to also place my SCOBY back in the jar with my new batch of tea. Just drop it in there, and then give it one more gentle stir to mix everything back in together, that last fermented tea left behind with your new batch. Mix it up, and that's it. Now I'm just going to put my cloth over the top. This keeps it to where it can still breathe. You don't want to put a tight-fitting lid on there, because as it ferments, it will create some gases. So you don't want to have it contained. But I'm going to put my cloth on it. This allows it to breathe, and it also allows or prevents bugs or flies or dust or dirt or whatever getting into your batch of kombucha. And sometimes it'll float straight to the top, sometimes it goes a little wonky in there. That's okay, it doesn't matter. So now I'm just going to slide it back into its little spot that I keep it on the counter. I don't put it in a dark space. I don't keep it under this in a cabinet. I don't do any of that. I just leave it straight on the counter. I have experimented in the past with sticking it in under my kitchen sink, under the cabinet, and because some people say to put it in a dark space, I did test that out a couple of times, and I didn't like it. Did have a slight effect on the end result of my kombucha from bottling and everything like that. So I personally didn't like it. It didn't create very many bubbles for me. The natural carbonation that we prefer. So I don't do that. I just leave it straight on the counter, out of direct sunlight. That is important. You don't want to put it in a window. That sun, when it starts to, come into the window, it will start to heat it up, and that can affect your good bacteria. So while it's pretty hard to kill your SCOBY, they are pretty resilient, but there are just a couple of things that you don't want to do because it can damage your SCOBY over time and then you won't have it anymore. So I'm going to leave it here on the counter. I typically wait about 4 to 5 days for my, for it to ferment. It doesn't take very long. Some people like to leave it a week or more, and I think that really just depends on how you like the taste of it. So around day 4, give it a little stir with your clean wooden spoon and take a little bit out and sample it. And if it tastes too sweet for you still, let it sit another day or two. If you like the way it tastes, then you're done and you can move on to the next stage, and which I'll share with you guys when it in 4 or 5 days when this is ready for me to bottle. But if you like the tart, tangy, more vinegary flavor, leave it for a week. And every couple of days, just give it a stir, taste it again after the 4th day. And once you've gotten it to where you like it, then bottle it up. Or don't bottle it up. You don't have to bottle it up. You can drink it. Take your SCOBY out, pour out, the tea that you're going to use, leave a little behind, and just drink it like that. I still think it tastes good. It does have slight carbonation at that point, but if you want it to taste like a soda, then bottle it again for the second ferment, which we'll go over next time. And then you can infuse it with different flavors too. That's always super fun. So that's it. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments. If you have something that you didn't understand, write it down there and I will make another video later going into more detail to help you out there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked this video. And if you want to see more, I don't just share farming stuff, I share a little bit of everything. So yeah, thanks you guys. See ya.